Hey, what's up, guys? It's Volen. I was gonna say it's me. It's always gonna be me. I don't know why I have to say who it is, but it's me again. And I've been gone for a while, and I thought I'd make you guys a video because I haven't been posting anywhere for about a month. So sometimes I do tend to disappear. I just sort of think to myself that I have to do more work, and I stop posting because I really don't think I have anything worthwhile. But I've been having too many things run through my head, and I thought I'd make a video before they all disappear. So in this one, I want to talk to you about confidence. So what art has been for me, really, it's been a vehicle sort of for self-development. It's got very little to do with cartoons and things like that, I'm sorry to say. But for me, it's been a way to find out about myself because I picked something that I couldn't do and I knew nothing about. And then this sort of became a vehicle for me to explore myself and the world and basically learning, skill building, which is an essential block for really anything that you want to be good at in life. So if you break everything down, everything is a skill. Like you might think that your character is just something you were born with. You might think that you're a certain way, that you do certain things, but really those are all just neurological connections that you've developed and you've reinforced. And really, this might seem a bit odd to say, but there's really nothing that anyone won't do. I mean, you can be trained to do anything, right? If you think of someone, let's say, being captured and tortured, there's really nothing that that person wouldn't do. If you watch Game of Thrones, can't remember the guy's name, but he just got captured, tortured, and he became Reek after. So they just broke him down, gave him a new personality. Is that possible? I would say most likely yes. And that's why it's cool to watch, because you get this, you wonder, like, is that possible? And yes, it is. Extreme trauma or anything really that has great emotional impact has a great tendency to really solidify connections in your brain. So before I ramble off for 20 minutes, so I just cut myself off, sort of, and I thought I was rambling, so I just stopped the video on myself. So this might seem choppy, but I hope it's still okay. So basically what I want to talk to you about again is that you can really do anything. So why I started with that thing that your brain is just a bunch of connections is because even though I gave an example of trauma, really the same thing goes the opposite direction. That's why and things that you think are unchangeable also can be changed, and they can be rewired. You can literally, if you're unhappy with who you are, you can change yourself. So learning about art to me was about changing myself, like literally. I'm someone who doesn't know anything about it, and I'm someone trying to become it. So I am changing myself, which is why I say that for me art was a vehicle for self-development, is because I needed to learn how I can change myself. And I also found out that anything else that I don't like in my life, I can also change. Like, I'm not giving you like the secret type of video, but what I do mean that is that anything that you don't like about yourself and the responses you even get from other people, that is also due to yourself most often, of how you interpret things and how you present yourself. So I'm gonna not go down that path though, and let's go into art a bit. And what I've shown you guys before, and I'll just quickly scroll, and I realize I normally do that way too quickly in other videos, so sorry. I'm just learning with all this stuff, and I get really tense before I do these, so it's actually getting better now. So when I started this year, I was at this point. Another segue, I'm just going to say I'm probably going to make another video, just like 10 to 15 minutes, giving you all the biggest lessons from the 1 year of learning. But this is where I started. So just values, learning basic things. I was about 25 at the time. I had no one to teach me. I live in a foreign country. So when you're sort of like that, you don't know anyone pretty much. You also don't get like support. You don't have anything to fall back on. So really you're on your own. So any decision that you make is pretty big, because if you do make mistakes, and you will make mistakes, but any mistake is really costly. So even if you do make dumb stuff, like just something that just costs you money, like something stupid that you did, like what just happened to me a few days ago, something really stupid, that normally wouldn't be a problem, be like something just funny, like, haha, I can't believe you did something that dumb. But then when it costs you money and you really, that's like really scarce at the moment because I'm working part-time so that I can do all this stuff. So really any mistake that you make gets amplified. So there's a lot of pressure on you at all times. So then when I started doing this, again, back to the self-development bit, when I started doing this, it's a really uncertain path. Art is always an uncertain path because a lot of people just say that you can't make money off of it and there is no clear career path, all that stuff. But at the same time, I know nothing about it and I don't know how to go about it. I don't even know if it's possible. But I just stuck with it. And then through failing like super often and all the time, just failing all the time. If you watched any of the other videos so far, it's all about failing, just like sucking really badly, but sticking with it. I'm just scrolling through some thumbs so that you can just get a glimpse of, as I'm talking, of the sucking. So really awful sucking. So insecurity, meaning uncertainty, not insecurity, but uncertainty. You don't know how it's going to end. You don't know if you should invest time in this. Also, you have very little resources to invest. Your time is very limited. You also want to at least live your life to some degree, you know, just spend some time with like the people you love or whatever. But at the same time, you have to work all the time. Also, money is super scarce. You don't know if this is going to pay off and you don't know if it's possible. So that was the situation I was in when I started. So for me, it was really like a tough time. But you know, having like worked through that 1 year of really sucking has really helped me be comfortable with sucking. And furthermore, it's made me be okay with the time that it takes to develop something, and I also appreciate it more. Because one thing is, you know, I used to think that like, oh, it's 12-year-old kids that are better than me. Like, why? I used to do that. But the thing is now, I'm getting better in my second year now. I'm getting better than any untrained person. So I can actually see the benefit now of, just like if you're training, anything like a martial art or bodybuilding, lifting weights, whatever, at some point you get stronger than anyone who's not training, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it. I mean, if anyone wants to catch up to you, they have to train, and there's no other way around it. So you have to train. If you're not training now, you have to train. And that's why people don't mind sharing what seem like secrets and stuff. And I always used to think like, why would you show me? Why would you show me all your brushes, all your techniques? I used to watch tutorials where I actually could do semi-photoreal stuff before I could paint at all, because I would just look at the techniques and I would replicate, but I knew nothing about art. But yet I could get a good result. So you could fake a good result, but you can't produce a good result. So I used to be thinking like, oh, I created this thing, which in essence was just faking, but I didn't know. So I was just faking a result because I couldn't do it consistently, but I would think like, oh, that's all that's required is that one good result. No, man, you need to produce consistently good results to be good. There is no cheating success. There is no cheating skill building. You just need to go through the tedium of doing every small little thing. You need everything that you have not done, any tiny little detail that you're not good at. Let's say if you want to paint dogs from imagination, or if you want to be able to pose figures from imagination, if you have not done that, you will not be good at it. It doesn't matter if you know anatomy. It doesn't matter if you do figure drawings really beautiful. If you spent a lot of time doing figure drawings, that might translate to some degree to being able to pose the figure. But until you do it and you consistently practice it, you won't be able to. Every tiny little element of art is a skill. And once you understand skill building and how it's done, then you just start spending the time to build your skill. So I'm gonna stop myself now. So this is the first segment of skill building, and I'm gonna actually show you some stuff that, so this is done in July. And by the way, this is gonna be the final 5th part of this whole thing. I have another 15 minutes to talk to you guys. I actually took an hour off of work so I can record this, so I have 15 minutes left. So everything that I've shown you before was pretty much done in a day. So everything so far, I would see people on YouTube, all the pros and all the DVDs and everything else. Everything you see is just edited so that it looks like one sitting. So again, since I didn't ever see anyone else do stuff, I would think that you just sort of need to complete it in one sitting. Those are completely absurd thoughts, but when you just sort of look at things and you have no other examples of how work is performed, you just sort of absorb it unconsciously. And you, even bad habits you perform. Like, for instance, Fang Zhu's, if you look at him, he doesn't show reference or anything else. He just sort of, and this thing just comes out like a space alien type, meaning that he's an alien. Like, he just sort of, and there's a landscape with like weird things that you could never imagine, and he just does it, and it looks like one sitting. Well, that guy's a maniac. Like, he's just amazing. But if you look at him, I used to actually do the same thing. I would scribble stuff, and then I would have like 3 hours of scribbles, and I would have nothing. And I would just, why do you have it and I don't have it? So that's it. You absorb stuff. So actually you need to be very deliberate with your practice, and you need to think very much about your process. You will not be able to complete anything worthwhile if you don't analyze your process constantly and change the things that are just not working out. And sometimes you don't know what's working out because you think it's just grinding it out, like you need to do it over and over again. But there's a difference between working smart and working hard, and sometimes you don't even know what the difference is. There's so many things that just sort of fuck with your head. I know it's hard to distinguish what's what. I will try and make some other videos on just breaking down skill building. I don't think I can fit this in here, but I wanted to talk to you guys about this, so let me know if you're interested, because I do want to know. You know, when you make videos, it's like throwing them out in like a big black void, so let me know what you guys think. So I'm going to shut up now and talk about other stuff. So this was the first one I did that I actually spent 2 or 3 days on. So I decided to change how I do things, and I would actually return to it. And I wouldn't think that stopping and doing it again, resuming work on the same piece, I wouldn't see that as failure necessarily when I did that. Because otherwise I would think the moment you stop, when the sitting is over, then the piece is finished, so wherever you left it off, that's sort of done. Again, that's ridiculous, but that's just, it's unconscious. Like, that is a process that is not thought out. You need to go through hundreds of processes like this, where, like, why do I do a stroke like this? Like, why does this happen? Or why do I make a stroke like this? Why do I think that a mountain looks like this or not like this? And I call that anchoring, and I have to talk about that at some other point. But you will have a lot of things that you have in your head. Art is really the process of seeing everything that you normally see in a completely different way. So you need to learn to postpone judgment and just sort of look at things more. You need to amplify things, look closer, and stop yourself from having those weird mental habits that you've developed unconsciously. So this one was my first one where I stopped myself from that habit of having to finish everything in one sitting, and actually sat down, and I did this over 2 or 3 days. Maybe I can show you some layers, because I actually saved these. You can actually see the real reference here. And what was really difficult for me at this time was actually change the background just slightly, and you can see what little difference there is from the original to mine. But this was such a huge big deal to me, just the little glow around the back, because up until this point I would only copy and I would not deviate from what I'm seeing. So any deviation would be sort of a mistake, because to me this comes from, like, again, all the stuff I talked about earlier about uncertainty, insecurity, all that stuff. To me, if it's not since I'm learning on my own, I'm sort of like, I need to copy everything as it is, because I couldn't do that. Now that I can actually do that, I'm much more willing to change things, and I'm much more comfortable changing things, and I know how to do it better. But at that very stage, I couldn't do it, because it was like failing. Like, oh, you did not do this as it was supposed to be done. Again, since I have no teacher, I didn't even know, like, what the goal of, like, this is, like, just doing art. I didn't know what the goal of it was. I didn't think of it as a career. I didn't think I would want to be a professional. I just wanted to, like, is this possible? Even though really that's, like, really stupid, considering, again, that I said, like, I have no money and I live in a foreign country. Like, why would your goal be not to be homeless? But anyway, though, yeah, you can see that little thing took so much guts. Like, I was just like, oh, come on, give it a glow. And so I gave it a little bit of glow, like, change it, man, just a little bit. And it was like a victory. And I can show you some of the layers, and again, some more of that insecurity stuff. I can show you all the layers I use, and you're going to see a lot of layers in the other two pieces I'm going to show you over the next 2 minutes, 10 minutes. You can see so many layers because any change I do is potentially fatal, and you can even see like the amount of change, like just that tiny little glow over here, that's a layer, because I don't want to commit to it. I haven't even collapsed it. Like when I finish the piece, I always finish them at that point as like, maybe I'll come back to it later because it's not good enough. So again, like I said, the vehicle for a self-development thing, you can see in your work profound, most likely in your work, at least some of you, you'll definitely see insecurities, just like character, just fear. Like I didn't know that like small things like that, like something like that could scare me. Like look at this is all I've done, this change here, like obviously. And again, I say all this stuff and I don't mean it as like a character deficiency or anything, but I do mean it, and also confidence is developed through practice, but I do always take it as a sort of metaphor of how I can improve upon myself. Because if I was too haphazard, I could just do something like this and just sort of like, I can't even destroy it. Like you can see how safe I am. I can even destroy it if I wanted to. But I could do something like this, and this would be too bold. But the thing is, when you're actually good, you can actually do that, and then you can still save it. You can just go in then, and you can just have it be so much more looser. But I would just be way too tight. And again, you know, take the self-development, but with a pinch of salt. I'm not saying like, oh, I used to be so afraid I couldn't leave my house or anything like that. Not at all. What I am saying is just that I could just see that there are ways to improve. That's all I mean. And any type of skill that you want to develop to a very high level, you'll be able to find the same thing. You'll find the same character building traits in anything that you want to do to a high level. I've actually collapsed it. I must have had even more layers. I can show you a bit more. But anything that you really want to commit yourself to, anything that you think is worth your time and worth your while, and you give a lot of thought to, and you just day after day, you just hammer it out, and you just sit there even when you don't want to, and you do it, and you do it, and you think about it, and you think, why didn't it work? Could it work? And then you read about successful people, and your brain especially. I'm really big into the brain. If you read the blog, you know that's really the driving force. I won't talk about it now because I'll gladly will for another hour, but then I'll miss my whole working day. But really it all comes down to practicing as best you can and just developing again. I'm going to shut up now because I don't know how many of you guys are actually interested in this stuff, and I'm going to move on to the next piece. So this was the first one I did where I told you guys I spent 3 days on it, and I'm just going to restore it, the original. So I spent 3 days on it, changed a little bit in the background, was happy with the result, was happy with the result because I actually got a good result. And again, if you've seen the other videos, if you just paid attention to the thumbs just now, you'd see that I used to only spend about a day and my results would not be very impressive. So having spent some time on like a figure and got a sort of okay likeness, I actually like this one a bit better, looks a bit more innocent and small, but having gotten a good result, haven't been able to copy the values, the colors correctly and everything, that for me was like the payoff for the previous 7 months of work, was being able to pull this off. When you saw the oranges and stuff where I couldn't even polish the values or get them to balance out correctly. On this picture, what I proved to myself is that day after day, I have been practicing, I've mastered the basic, and I've been able to apply that basic fundamental level knowledge that I've mastered so far. I've been able to apply it consistently. This is sort of like an exam. You can actually test yourself, and I think you should test yourself pretty much with every piece you do, but you should find something. I call these master studies again, so it doesn't have to be an actual study of a master like a painting done by a master, but it could be just anything that you spend an inordinate amount of time on and you polish it to the best of your ability. It doesn't have to be polished, like meaning you might want to have a looser style, do that, but do it to the best of your ability. Return to it until it is as good as you can make it. And for me at this point, this was as perfect as I could make it, even if it's missing some texture like in the face and some hairs over here, even though I remember I had them before. But for me, this level of skill was perfection at this point. It was the best I could do, and I was happy with the result. So I don't mean like you should always know when you're happy. Like I don't mean like praise yourself, like yeah, you're so amazing. But you will always feel like at some point, by the way, this becomes a sort of trap because you'll feel like you've arrived. So at the end of the year, I was like almost relaxing. You'll see. I'll try and show you the final piece I did for last year, on the 31st, and I was just sort of like, yeah, this art stuff is getting pretty easy, you know. And then now I'm still working my ass off all the time, and sometimes even now I'm like, oh, what I just did, like that's amazing. But then the next day, like, oh my god, there's so much I gotta do. Anyway, I got 7 minutes left before I gotta go to work. This one was the next piece I did. This one was, previous one was completely copied, slightly invented. This one was pretty much completely copied, a bit more invented. So this one just started off as a figure drawing. So I actually found this figure and I thought I'd do a figure study for the day. And then I changed the head a bit, which you can actually definitely tell because it looks like an ostrich egg, and I've sort of butchered the skull, but I couldn't figure out how to do it properly, and I wouldn't shoot reference of myself, and even with reference I couldn't do it. And this again goes back to me saying to you guys about, you know, people giving out secrets and stuff. Those secrets are no good to you if you rely only on the secrets. Quick segue, all right? It's all about myelin in your brain and basically building habits, which basically means that the more and more and more and more hours you hammer on something, the more of your skill you'll automate, and then you'll be able to actually think of other things. I'm not going to go more into that now, even though there's a lot more to it, but really it's all about practice. A trick will do you no good. Practice will do you all the good, but that takes time, and this is the biggest factor of who's going to succeed and who's not, is how much time are you going to spend on it. So started as a figure study, sort of okay, I would say, pretty detailed, but you know, you can always have some improvement. I don't particularly care for this piece or anything, but it was like really the first one that I could sort of call my own, even though it's really not, because I just copied the model off of someone. But at least it's not as blatant as the other one, where it's like it's just a copy, really. That's all it is. I don't take it as my work. It's just a copy. This one I just sort of put into context. Like, I guess the big thing for this one then is that I was just able to put it in a context that was not the original context. So, and why is this big? Well, it's just because first one was just basically learning how to copy, being able to copy something over a prolonged period of time. This one is not only copy, but able to manipulate slightly so as to fit things together and actually be able to maybe begin expressing something. Not that I'm expressing who knows how much through this, but it's just being able to convey ideas, and this is what, you know, art is all about. I think we, as artists, get too caught up in, as studying artists, we get too caught up in the technical stuff because it is so difficult. And then you think like, oh, I've done it, and then oh, I've done it, and then oh, I've done it. But then actually the bigger thing is, the actual thing is so much bigger than anything that we're doing on a daily basis. It does take years. Training takes years to do this. And it can be short-circuited. You need to go through that process. You need to go through the years of practicing and studying. And if you don't understand why it's years, well, it's because every tiny little thing is a separate skill that you need to learn, practice, automate. So you need to practice until it automates, and then you can continue on to do other things. So I think actually, yeah, I definitely must have. It's the first time I also used some photo texture, even though I wouldn't do that for another year really. So I would have the mindset that using textures is sort of like cheating. So I used a little bit here, but it wouldn't be a technique that I wouldn't start using until next year. Next study over here, Jean-Léon Jerome. Now this one kicked my ass. So this one I did over, I think about 20 days. I did about over 20 days. You can see 100. Oh my God, I didn't know there's that many. Jesus Christ. Did you see that? So hundreds of layers over 20 days. I can't really remember, but this was like my exam for the year. It's like, okay, I see a painting I like, and I think this is it. So this is the painting. So I saw it, I liked it, and really when you're doing these, to be honest with you, it doesn't even matter if you like it. All that matters is that you buckle down and you choose something and you do it and you return to it and you keep doing it and you keep doing it. And if you haven't done this yet and you're at the skill level where I can actually do it, if you're just a beginner, I would recommend that you just practice everything. Just draw with lines. If you can't get anything accurate, practice your accuracy, practice some values, practice some color, just like I showed in the previous videos. Then get to the master study, or even just when you get to value, or even when you get to accuracy, do like a master accuracy study. Try and plot out everything so that it's correct. Then do a master value study. After you've plotted everything out, shade everything until it's perfect. Then do the color over the top after a few months when you're ready to do that. But with this, you can see hundreds of layers. I wouldn't say hundreds of hours, but maybe 40, 50 hours. I don't know exactly. But I really wanted to. I was actually very interested in this one. Sorry guys, I'm just looking at my time. I'm going to have to go now. I was really interested in how loose those were. Because when you're learning all this stuff, you don't necessarily, you might know, like intellectually you might understand that you don't need to draw everything, you don't need to paint everything, but you can only imply things. But at the same time, like when your brain just reads something, like when you read those little blots of color as people, like you can't not see them as people. Like no matter how hard you look, like they're people, they're little people. And then when you look at them up close, there's no facial features, there's no nothing. But yet, at the same time, you can definitely read things into them. Like, I think this guy's yelling. You can definitely, this guy, I think, is giving the thumbs down. You can read things into them, even though they're so loose. So to me, that was very interesting. And as you can see, I didn't really finish mine that well because I was like, well, how did, like, he must have taken so long to do that. Even though they are so loose, and I thought it should be simpler to do. But again, definitely learned a lot from this one. I really need to go to work and spend a lot of time on it. And again, all this has been building so far is just confidence, just building confidence. Like, yes, this thing can be done. No, it's not about me. No, it's not about whether I've been successful before or whether or not I know about this or that or whether anything I've ever done before has panned out or not. It's all about doing the work, and it became more about the work and less about me as a person, and just getting the mile in. You know, spending the hours of practice to automate and to be able to produce consistently good work. So this one for me was really, this one really done in November is really the final exam sort of for me that I wouldn't say I learned to paint. At that time I thought, oh yes, I learned to paint. But now I can say, like, I learned to copy relatively good, even though, by the way, one thing I want to say is that anything that you just spend enough time on will turn out okay. I can guarantee you that. So even if you suck, I sucked when I did this, I still suck, I'm always going to suck in a good way. But when I did this, it was just coming back day after day. You can see the video on my channel, day after day, painting more and more and more detail, correcting all the time, just everything. Like the figure took me, I think the figure is half the 40 hours that it took me to paint. So it's just repainting, redo it, everything over and over. You can see it. Like, I didn't paint it skillfully. A master paints skillfully. A person who's just learning paints badly, but thankfully they're maybe so passionate or just so foolishly persistent that they will come back over and over and over to polish it. Whereas a normal person would just give it like, oh, it's not even worth it. But if you're stubborn, persistent, and maybe foolish enough to love doing this stuff, if you just go back to it every day, I guarantee you will progress, and I guarantee you it will be possible for you too, and I guarantee you I will miss my bus to work. Goodbye guys, thanks a lot for watching.